Oh, friends, it's draft weekend. Fantasy drafts are happening right now in a big, big way. I personally have, I think, six. I think I have 6 drafts this weekend. My family's not thrilled with me, but that doesn't mean that we've run out of time to do shows. Shows will continue here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris. Today, one of these special weekend editions. I'll be joined in just a moment by a buddy of mine. We've worked together on and off in the fantasy space for about the last 5 or 6 years. It is his video cast debut. We've done some audio stuff in the past. But before we get to that, got to remind you guys, this show is brought to you by our pals at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. They've got every stat, matchup breakdowns, even live odds. Live odds you can bet on in the middle of the ball games. And with the largest catalog of odds on everything from football to baseball, playoffs, hockey, basketball, political props, every time is a great time to head down there. And when the games are over, you can go to the online casino, get down on some blackjack, play some poker, unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. That is, again, Bet Online. The game starts here. My good buddy, Captain Cain, he's got 5 targets. He's got a lightning round list of guys that we're not going to deep dive on. And he has, for the first time here on the show, the anti-target. But before we get into that, you said to me before we started recording that you think this is the first time you've done a show where your face is in it. So welcome to the magical internet, Captain Cain's face. What's up, dude?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, this is unfortunately what I have to work with. I apologize. I have more of the face for radio. It's been a really long time. I think since I even did a pod. Used to be the box score breakdown. I was trying to figure that out. I think it was 4 years ago. We used to do that. I think you and me did a couple. I'm trying to remember some of the names that we had.
Brandon names have come and gone.
Brandon Marcus, I think, was on a couple.
Yeah. So he's actually a buddy of mine in real life. This is one of those weird, like the kids say IRL in real life.
Really?
Brandon is someone I actually know, and he's the host of our Clippers show here at the Old Man Squad Network as well. He was the broadcaster. He does play-by-play as well, just like I do, and that's sort of a weird little circle. But I forgot that you guys did some shows together also. The years, like, what a weird blur it's been, like really since 2020 with COVID, but just like overall, in any event, first of all, what you're saying about your own face, that's nonsense. And also, I must say, and there are listeners that are going to be hearing this after the fact that can't see the video because it's going to go out on audio channels as well. However you feel about your own face, you very clearly have the mustache for television. Look at that bad boy. That is a robust. That is a snifter. No, duster. What? I've never gone with the full mustache. I mean, I've grown out the full like playoff beard when I worked in minor league ball, but I never shaved into a mustache. Other than just for like that one picture and then finished shaving the mustache off. That thing is glorious. It's so
Thanks,
thick.
man. It's the only thing I can do. But I'm in the military, so this is I gotta either keep the face always has to be clean, unless you get some kind of waiver. The one thing you can do is the stash. So
it's like
I rock what I can by the time I get out of the military, and I can grow a beard. I'm just hoping the entire thing's not gray by then, but I'm definitely jealous of the guys that can grow a beard.
Oh, it's a hassle. I mean, yeah, I feel like I feel like I've heard a similar rule about the fire department where they're allowed to do mustaches, but not much else. And if you couldn't grow the mustache, you'd be a New York Yankee, I think is how the rules. That's like the gradations of what facial hair you can have. In any event, people came for the fantasy today. You and I are doing catch up, but we haven't talked in a really long time, so this is fun for me. As I've said before, and it probably makes more sense for me to say it to you, you actually have the wheel on this. You are guiding this freight, plane, whatever vehicle, whatever mode of transportation you'd like to call this show. Where do you want to take us first? Who's Captain Cain's first guy?
So what I tried to do, and apologies if I looked to the side, I tried to take some notes so I'm better prepared. What I tried to do is, I've I've been pretty full bore on absorbing as much content as I can for the last 2 or 3 months. So I don't want to throw out names that everyone's like, yeah, we know that. Yeah, we know that. We heard that 100 times. So I try to digest a bunch of content, listen to a lot of your shows, Dan. I listen to, Josh and a bunch of the guys around the industry. So unless I'm missing anyone, apologies, because I'm sure all these guys have been talked about a little bit, but I haven't heard their names very much. So the first one that I have, my favorite one, I guess I'll say for last. The first one I have is Zach Edey out of Memphis. And I know he's projected to start, just a monster dude, 7'4", 300. And a lot of projections I've been seeing have him around like 20, 22 minutes, like 9 points, 8 boards, and maybe like a block and a half or 1.2 blocks. But I feel like I don't see a reason why he couldn't get more minutes than that, maybe 25, 28. I watched one of the preseason games and he went out there and it looked like they were running him in 3-minute stints, like 3 minutes, he'd come off the court, 3 minutes in, he'd come off the court. But then one of the last ones, he stayed out there the whole time. And he had that game where even though they brought him off the bench and they started the traditional bench guys, he had something like 23 and 9 in 19 minutes. So I'm just kind of excited about him, and I'm just kind of wondering if maybe the projections on him are too low. And looking at the depth chart, they have your guy Brandon Clark for sure. He's up and running again.
Yeah, he was a Vesper's favorite from like 2021 that never was. The Brandon Clark year that never was. That was like the one that got away. But no, you're right. I mean, like, and I think it was Matt Lawson that was on the show a couple weeks ago where he kind of reminded me, hey, like, Dan, Zach Edey is not a bad foul shooter. You're, Dan, supposed to be less mean about rookie bigs that don't hurt your free throw percent. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's right. I'm being too cruel. There are opportunities for him to create value fast. Number one, like what you said, he's an absolutely massive dude. So just like being there is going to give him block opportunities. And then the Grizzlies love a giant screen setter. Steven Adams, a wonderful example of that. So, Cap, where are you thinking about Edey in terms of where, I mean, his pre-rank is 104 on Yahoo. That's actually pretty close to his ADP. He's going a little bit after 100, which I think kind of puts him towards, mid-end 9th round in a lot of instances. Are you comfortable taking him in the 9th round? Would you go earlier? Are you hoping he slips? What's your strategy for how you're collecting Zach Edeys?
So this is something that I've been doing the last couple of years a lot more is more auction drafts. And he's been going, I think, in auction for he's projected at $1. So he's supposed to be one of those guys that you can get in a traditional would be like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th rounds. And you can get them for about $5. Like you said, in a snake draft at 104, I don't know if it might be, you might not have a ton of value on top of that, but if that's, kind of baking in projections, if around the industry, they're kind of around that 22-minute mark. If you get around 25, I think that could go up. I like the idea of Ja being back. Hopefully his ankles get good and he's good to go, and him throwing some easy shots to him. I like the idea of keeping him on the floor with, JJJ playing his favorite spot at the 4. So 104 might be a little high, but like you said, they did that shakeup just the other day, which is always fun right before everyone jumps into the drafts. So like you said, the ADP and the projected rank are right about the same. So I'm wondering if he could fall, I probably wouldn't reach to go earlier than that unless you really need like a low end big, but there's other guys that you can get a little bit later, I think, for bigs. I wouldn't reach for him, but I'm just wondering if maybe as a community, if the projections on minutes are maybe a little bit low there. And if they go higher, I think, maybe we're looking at like a 13 points, 10 boards, maybe 1.5 blocks. And like you said, at Purdue, he was obviously high volume free throw guy, but I think he was shooting around like 71%. but he's not going to have the little guys in college on him like that. So I don't think we're going to see very many free throws from him, or not a crazy amount of free throws like he had in college.
So the funny thing too, and then we'll move on to player number 2, is that I'm looking at the 2 Yahoo Roto drafts that I did earlier this week. He went as the second pick in the 8th round in one of them. So that was pick 86, and he went as the first pick in the 10th round in the other. So 109 and 86. So all over the map so far. I know a limited sample size there, just 2 drafts, but it tells us we don't really know where the hell he's going. And so see where he falls. And if you can get him in that range, that's where you start to think about it. And I don't really have a problem with it. And I got to figure out where I put him in my buckets. Cap, where you want to go for player number 2?
All right. The next couple, and I think this is helpful because obviously you're more of a roto guy and I'm more of a head-to-head guy. So this can kind of help us have 2 different perspectives here. These next 2 guys are pretty similar. I really like Keyonte George, and I know he's got his own issues. Like last year, I think the last 2 months he was playing 31 minutes, about 14.6 points, about 4.4 assists, 36% field goal percentage. That one hurts, and 3.5 turnovers. That also really hurts. That's about like what most of your first round guys are getting. But I know a lot of people in head-to-head are kind of punting free throws by default because you're trying to bludgeon somebody with volume. So you're just trying to stream in as many guys as you can. So a lot of people are kind of punting free turnovers by default. So what I like about him, in the preseason, he's been starting. Last year, I liked him as a late-round flyer pick, but we didn't know how that was going to shake out, with I'm blanking Sexton and who's the Jack Sparrow guy. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. First time on camera. I'm sorry, guys.
Are we talking about the Jordan Clarkson?
Yes, sorry, okay. Jordan Clarkson.
Was that his Halloween costume?
I just saw like he had those dreads going all the way down to his shoulders, and I was like, he looks a lot like Jack Sparrow to me. But anyway, I know this year he's supposed to start, and that was in 31 minutes last year to end the last 2 months. I think he could push up to around 33-ish minutes, and you might be looking at a guy who's getting like 16, maybe 6 or 7 with 2.5, 3 threes. Like I said, it's kind of a build guy. Like if you're already default either punting or kind of soft punting on turnovers, and you've taken some guys in the early rounds that don't have the greatest field goal percentage, maybe you're a Wemby team. And I guess one of the biggest things I like is that, how everyone likes to target the point guards early on and grab a bunch of point guards in the rounds 1 through 3, 4th round. He's one of those guys that is usually there. I think his default rank on Yahoo is 124, and his ADP, as far as I'm looking at, is also 124. He had some really nice pop games last year where he was going for like 30 points, like 6 threes. And just when I held him for so long, and just when he was finally taking off and he started starting, he got hurt. So I'm pretty high on him. I think at 124, like I said, if your build supports it and you just need a point guard, I'm good with taking him. I think you can get him and the next guy I'll talk about pretty late. But what I find is I've done a handful of mocks and a handful of real drafts, is that I'm always light on small forwards and power forwards. So what I've been trying to do is make sure I get at least 1 or 2 solid small forwards. I don't want to have my league like one of them where it's like my forward or my only small forwards are RJ Barrett and Karis LeVert. I want to avoid that in my future drafts. So I'll make sure I grab at least a decent small forward that I.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. I guess my one fear, and you talked about it, how Keyonte George is more of a build guy. And for some reason wings are, I'm running into the same issue as I keep ending up with a bunch of centers and point guards and like mixing and matching those guys and trying to create a team. But you do ultimately have to fill out some other parts of your roster. I'm anxious to hear who you said was the other guy you could also get kind of late. So why don't we actually just jump to the next one? Yeah, I'm good with that. Who's next? Cap, where are we going next?
All right. The next one, similar vein, and I know you're gonna hate this guy for Roto. For head to head, I like him. I'm gonna go with Scoot Henderson.
You know, it's funny you say that because I was just looking at the Trailblazers box score from tonight, and he's someone that I actually think is an amazing punt, field goal, punt, turnover guy. But I see almost no way that you can draft him if you're not doing those things. Are you here to try to talk me into drafting him in other circumstances as well, or just those?
For Roto, he's probably, that's a lot to stomach because kind of like Keyonte, you know, I think he had one game this preseason where he had about 7 turnovers. But what I like with our friend of Jeremy Grant is that when you get to like that March and April, it might be kind of slow going at first. Like before Simons got hurt, I think some people were saying that he's going to come off the bench. Some were saying he's going to start, and it was kind of unsure. So I'm wondering if he's going to, and then, Shaedon Sharpe got hurt too. So I think he's got that starting spot locked up, at least until, Shaedon Sharpe comes back and convolutes things. I don't think Sharpe would push Scoot out of the rotation, but now we don't have to worry about that. They can start him, Simons, and who else were they starting there next to him?
Honest to goodness, I haven't a clue with Portland. I mean, if we're looking at their preseason, Denny Avdia got the start with Jeremy Grant. That's probably the choice. Toumani Camara started the preseason game on Friday night. I throw my arms out to the sides in confusion. I think when Sharpe is back, you probably see Camara as the guy who gets booted there. So I would assume that it's Simons, Avdia, Grant, Ayton, and then maybe Scoot. Maybe it's still Camara. It's hard to know because if Scoot's coming off the bench, that takes a little bit of the sting out of things. But
for sure,
I've talked about it on the show a little bit too, and I'll even put some of his game logs from the end of last year up there. Like these games are out of control. This was a 19-point, 15 assist, 8 turnover game for Scoot at the end of last year. 30.7 assist game, and then there was an 18-12 with 9 turnovers. It's untenable, that number, like you said, in Roto, and frankly, that number is perhaps untenable even on the head-to-head side if you're trying to be competitive in turnovers. But I'm actually not totally against what you're bringing up, which is if there is that ramp up, which there should be. We know Portland is in seller mode. They're going to try to get what they can from whatever very few veterans are left on this team. Scoot has to be a part of what they're building. They spent a top 2 pick on him last year, so they're not going to just hide him for an entire year. I'm not totally against what you're saying in head-to-head, in a guard-heavy build, but if you have any prayer of trying to compete in specifically turnovers, I think that's going to be the bigger issue over even field goal percent, then I can't get with you. But if you're talking me into him for basically 8 cat, then I will meet you in the middle. How's that for a deal?
That's really fair. And again, what I really am a fan of there is that I think even after the Yahoo rankings update the other day, he's still at 154 and the ADP is 131. So he's still one of those guys where if you want to, zig when everybody else is zagging and you don't want to reach for point guards early on, and you want to fill out with bigs and small forwards, and you're looking at your team and you're like, I think I'm, like you said, punt, field goal, punt free or especially punt turnovers. You can probably survive his field goal hit, but the punt turnovers, I mean, that's he might lead the league in turnovers. So, but I think maybe, we'll see how things go to start the year, but later on that March timeframe, when you're looking at guys that could maybe help you win the league, especially like I said, in a head-to-head, maybe he's putting up 17 and 7, like those assist numbers you're looking at. I forgot they were even that juicy at the end of the year, like a 10, a 15, or 12. So I'm grabbing him wherever I can. And I thought other people would be a little higher because all the leagues I'm in so far are head-to-head, most of them auction. But I've got him in 3 out of 3 leagues so far. So I'm excited about that. And they're all punt turnover teams. So yeah, pretty excited.
Probably got him for $1 in those leagues, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's funny, you get your $200 default amount that you can spend, and your last 4 picks a lot of times end up being $1 unless somebody goes that other people are interested in. But yeah, his projected average on Yahoo is 0, and his average is $2. So getting him like save a couple bucks, and I'll get him for like $2 or $3 at the end of the draft.
Yeah, not 0 though, huh? Can't quite pull off that steal.
Can't pull that off.
By the way, you guys can all, and I forgot to do this at the beginning because I know I'm gonna. How is the what is the proper pronunciation of the is it Canegas?
Yep.
Oh, all right, I got it. Well, I'll spell it for people because if they can't see it, they're gonna have trouble with this one. He's got 2 more. He's not done here yet. But you can follow the captain on social at CaptCaineghis, Captain Canegas on social media. Of course, he will be tagged in all the tweets that go out, and he's going to be his Twitter will be in the show description as well. Cap, take us to number 4.
All right, sir. The next one I got, and this one's probably lesser or probably a more common pick, and I think more people are getting on board, especially with the preseason. But Will Hardy said that they're committed to developing their youth in Utah. And Walker Kessler is sitting there. What was he, like 1 out of 6 guys that are 23 and younger, like 5 or 20 and younger? Not great news for Markkanen, but we kind of saw that coming at least towards the end of the year. But I'm excited about him. We're not taking him in the 2nd round or 3rd round like he was going last year in snake drafts. I think with the update, he's now at 73.
Yeah, one of the biggest leapers in all of fantasy. Kessler opened at 125. You're right; he's now at 73. So a 52 slot jump over the span of the 3 Yahoo board revisions. He's one of the biggest leapers we've got. And by the way, I don't mean to step on your toes. I was just giving you the pre-ranked number there. I'm still good with him at 73. Are you?
Yeah, I like it a lot, especially, I don't know how many minutes we don't know how many minutes he's going to get, but if he can get 25-ish, and you could have a 10 and 10 with 2.6 blocks. I really love that because I see, with Wemby this year, a lot of people are like, well, if I don't really chase blocks, then I might as well punt them. And I'm like, well, sure, even if you don't chase blocks, you're not going to be beating the Wemby team if they grab like a JJJ or Miles Turner, somebody to pair with him. But if you're even decent in blocks and you have a couple of shot blockers, you can maybe beat 11 of the other 12 teams in your league. And we got Kessler that could be putting up 2.5 blocks a game, and them saying that they're committed to him or committed to the youth movement. And it looks like he's starting right now. I think John Collins is supposed to be behind him. I really like it, especially somebody with that amount of blocks. It's really hard to get, even like you said, even at 73. I think that's fair. I think I'm in.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. And just from a strategic standpoint, you got into a really interesting discussion point there, which is a lot of teams giving up on blocks the second that they don't get Wemby. But there are 10 other teams in the league that don't have Wemby. You might not even end up playing the Wemby team in the playoffs in this head-to-head league. And you might run into the Wemby team when he has a 3-game week in the playoffs or something like that. And maybe he has 1 down blocks game and he only gets 10 blocks for the weeks for that club. Like, I get it, on the roto side where it's counting over the entire year, which again is my preference. That makes it tougher because over the course of an entire season, Wemby's probably going to get like 300 blocks this year. It's going to be some absurd number. You're probably not going to pass them, but there are, again, a lot of other teams that you can be in front of. Head to head, I think it's wild to just give up on blocks if you don't have Wemby, because, again, like, you might not play them. You might play him on a week where he doesn't get that many. Like, don't punt them immediately if there are guys out there like Kessler that are values that might give you, I don't know, 60 to 70% of what Wemby does, and you can make up the rest somewhere else. And you could build a team that's maybe not as good at free throw shooting as the Victor team. But anyway, keep this thing moving. I'm 100% with you. Kessler might be my favorite guy on the board, and maybe not as much at 73 as at 120, but still, I think going to be a really fun year for him, putting last year's clunker behind us. Cap, you got a fifth guy you like a lot, and I want to make sure that I save a minute or two for the lightning round and the guy you don't. So who is player number 5 that's on the good board for the good captain?
Okay, so this one, we have all these values of guys that we like, like Towns maybe being a sneaky pick in the second round, or he was until the update. If you're comfortable with injury risk, LaMelo Ball, you got all these guys that could make that little half round, maybe round jump. But like I said, I listen to a lot of people, and I don't hear anybody talking about this guy that I have in 3 out of 3 leagues, Washington starting power forward, Alex Sarr.
Yeah, what do you think about the Rook? Because he's, of all the rookies, and and everybody that's listened to my show for any number of years knows how down I am on rookies. He and Zach Edey are the only ones that are anywhere near boards that I'm working with, because they are big men. Edey bigger, just in sheer mass, but they are big dudes who can block shots and not ruin your free throw percent. And that's just sort of like the simplified bucket I've created. I haven't ended up with him anywhere because I don't know what the learning curve is going to be like for him. But what do you see, Cap, as the Alex Sarr learning curve this year?
So what I really like is right now on Yahoo, I think he's number 165 pre-rank. His ADP, if I'm looking at it correctly, was 133. So going about 30 spots above that. Some leagues have drafted already, or a good chunk, and he's only at 43% rostered. He's apparently 7'1", 225 pounds, which isn't very girthy, but with Valanciunas banging around down low, maybe he doesn't need to be. And a couple of the preseason games I watched, the first one I watched to him, he had 12 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 triples. And I try to not get too overwhelmed by the box score without actually watching some of the game, especially if it's a guy I haven't seen play before. And he looked really good. Like he was scoring at all 3 levels. His 3-point shot looked smooth. They were finding him for wide open dunks. His length is crazy. According to Yahoo, it says he's like got a 9'2" reach.
That's wild.
Yeah. And again, with the blocks, like even if he does almost nothing else at an ADP of 133 and a default rank of 165, I am very comfortable taking him in that range. Like I might even consider him, depending on the league, how competitive it is. I might look at him somewhere around 100. I think some of the projections I was seeing was saying that they think he could average 2 blocks a game, which I was a little surprised about. So I love that, especially when we talked about some of the scarcity of blocks. If you could get Kessler around 80, and then you could get Sarr potentially at 133 for 2 blocks a game. Some guys in Washington, you don't know what's going to happen with Kuzma and Poole, if there's going to be trades or they're not playing for anything and they shut them down. But I feel like this is the perfect situation for him. Whereas even if, they're pulling a Detroit Pistons and losing 20 plus in a row, I don't think they have any reason not to run him out there. And right now, I know Yahoo's just got power forward eligibility. They're saying potentially he might get some center eligibility, but either way, I really like him there. So he's coming really cheap. When he was in Perth, he had in 17 minutes a game, almost 10 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks in 17 minutes. In preseason so far, he's at 1.7 blocks over 3 games in 23 minutes. And if he's anywhere near 30, I'm scooping him up wherever I can and almost not even worrying about the other stats. But I know a lot of people. The nice thing is, he had that injury. I think it was a calf strain or calf soreness or something. So he hadn't gotten many minutes in the last couple games. But I think that really helps people who are interested in him because he's not shooting up the draft boards. He's not getting a lot of traction. And a lot of people will reference those summer league numbers that were maybe some historic numbers, 19, 12, and 15 shooting splits, 5.5 points. But even with that, he still had 7.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 2.5 blocks, and 0.8 steals. So he is probably one of my favorite picks this year.
I like it. All right, we're into lightning round territory with Captain Kanagas. Cap, who are the lightning round names of players you like? And let's end with the player you don't.
All right. So I don't think anyone's talking about Bilal Coulibaly. Yahoo default of 187, ADP of 145. Looks like he's starting, going to get 30-ish minutes. We love his steals, and he can get you 0.7, 0.8 blocks. He apparently, as a 6'7" dude last year, I think they were saying he had a 7'4" wingspan.
Not quite Alex Sarr's 9 feet, but we're getting there.
Right, exactly. Let me see. Let me go to some of the targets I had on here.
Where shall we go next?
I have some that. This is one that I don't think many people are talking about, but I think is a okay last round flyer. Tidjane Salaün from Charlotte. I think he's supposed to come off the bench, but he looks like he's got a pretty nice stroke. He's kind of stout. Like, I don't think he's going to be pushed around too much. He can rebound. I think in one of the last games, he had 14 rebounds. And I think he could be their 6th man off the bench. So with your last pick, if you're looking for a guy that can get you some threes and, your 3-point streamers are usually doing just that, maybe they'll get you some steals, but kind of a unique combination of pretty decent 3-point shooting with what looks to be pretty good rebounding. Another guy, I guess, just kind of to watch is Ware out of Miami. He looked kind of like mini Alex Sarr to me, blocking shots like crazy, threes, dunks. Like he just looked really good, but I don't know if he's going to get enough time on the court. And then the other one, and this is kind of deep leaguey, but just something to keep an eye on. Yves Missi from New Orleans. I know everyone was kind of looking at what's his name, Carlo Makovich, and he looked really good in summer league. So I understand the hope that he would maybe start, but I think he's gotten 8 minutes total in the preseason. So you know how the community is. If people talk about one guy, he shoots up the board. So he shot to like 139 default on Yahoo. And I don't think he's ranked again. But anyway, for Missi, man, he is pretty skilled at blocking shots. He was blocking shots like crazy. I don't think he's going to do much else. If you're in a pretty deep league or you're looking for a sneaky guy that's going to get you some shots to win a head-to-head matchup at the end of the week, or by some chance something happens to Tice and he might be a little too thin to start at the center, but that might be a decent balance with Zion out there and all his girth and gravity. So again, not super exciting maybe, but trying to maybe like shed some light on some guys that I've kind of seen pop a little bit in the preseason that I haven't heard many people talk about.
Love it. And who do you hate? Give me the hate. Let the hate wash over me before I let you go.
All right. This one, this is mostly a head-to-head thing versus Roto. So I don't want to make you mad with this one, Dan, because I saw that you drafted this guy in the first round in another league. I feel like I'm on an island, at least in the head-to-head, at being scared of James Harden. I know, PG's obviously gone, and Kawhi, who knows what's going on there. And I know they don't own their draft pick, so they have no reason to tank. But I just don't see why at 35 years old, with his supporting cast being Norm Powell, Terrence Mann, Derek Jones, and Zubats, I don't see why they'd push him to 32, 35 minutes a game regularly, at least. And like I said, in Roto, I understand that it's going to be great because the games missed doesn't really matter. But I think when you get to March and April, I haven't looked at the over-unders on win totals, but I would guess that they're not in the running to be competing for the play-in. I just don't like it. And then especially after everything with Kawhi, and he's their last star remaining at 35 years old, I don't see why they're going to push him. Like, I think they'd learn from Kawhi, let's take it easy. Maybe we see this for like the fourth or fifth time and Harden demands a trade out of there. I'm not sure, but for head to head, I liked kind of like most of the community did. I liked when he was going in the second round and you could get him in the second round, pair him with a Trae Young or something.
Those were
but
good.
Yeah, at number, I think 10 where he sits now for head to head, I'm not doing that. And I feel like I'm crazy here because everyone I see is like, you have to have this guy. He's a complete steal there. And I'd rather go with Trae Young in that spot, because even if Harden's like 23, 24, 25 points, 10, 11 assists, Trae without DeJounte there could be 30, 31 points, same amount of assists, a little less steals and a little less blocks. But I would rather go, I'm going to sleep better at night with Trae Young, and knowing, he bounces back relatively quickly. And I'm not really over factoring in last year. I know he missed a good chunk last year, but historically he's recovered pretty fast. So am I crazy on this? If you were in head to head, would you?
I think I'm probably still doing it. I have hope that they don't get eliminated from the play-in until after my head-to-head playoffs are done, because I like to make sure my leagues are done 3 weeks early. But here's the thing. I'm not going to argue with a man who's got that mustache. That's just where I'm at right now. Just like from a personal standpoint, that's where I'm at right now. It's a very reasonable thought. I think they're going to hang in there just long enough, but I could be wrong. If Kawhi's out for like 2 months here, I knock on whatever, I hope that's not the case, then they're going to have trouble winning regularly. But if we're talking about, hanging on for 3 weeks without Kawhi or something like that, I think they'll have enough left to sort of battle for the, 9, 10 spots. And then even if they get knocked out, I'm hoping that it's at the end of March, beginning of April, when my leagues are hopefully done. But you're not insane, because they're not that good of a team without Kawhi there. They've got a lot of okay pieces, but that ain't enough to get you over the hump in a Western Conference that is just brutally, brutally tough. Captain, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad that we got a chance to catch up here. Again, he is at Capt, C-A-P-T, Captain. Caneghis, Cainegghis. Welcome back to the fray, man. It's been too long.
Thanks, Dan. I loved it. Like I said, first time on camera. Really appreciate you having me here. If anyone is interested, I don't have a massive following on Twitter, but I'm pretty
we'll get you there.
Yeah, I'm pretty heavily involved in staying up on things. So send questions my way or whatever. I love answering questions.
The great Captain Cain, ladies and gentlemen. Old buddy of mine. He did so many things with us back at the old spot. He was running the forums. He was helping in different chat rooms. He was doing the box score breakdown. He was all over the place, just a jack of many fantasy trades. And I'm very excited that we got a chance to get him on this show, mustache and all, bringing the heat with, quick recap here on this one, Zach Edey, wait a minute, Keyonte George, Scoot Henderson, Walker Kessler, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Tidjane Salaün, Kel'el Ware, Yves Missi, and does not like the fact that I like James Harden in the first round. This is what's beautiful about fantasy basketball. There's so many different ways to play it, where he got like team fun mixed in there, along with a little bit more roto love. As long as you find someone in this fantasy space where you trust the way that they work through the numbers and think through how the players operate, the world is your oyster. Let's have some fun with it. Good luck on your drafts going on this weekend. Hit that like button. Subscribe to everything we're doing out here. We got a few days left before the season starts, and then we dive into all the box scores, all the trade stuff. So much coming up here yet to be completed. This is just draft season. Real games have not even yet begun. I want to do a show on preseason takeaways. See if there's time for that. I'm Dan Vespers for the Old Man Squad. Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Find me on social at Dan Vespers. Old Man Squad will follow you back. Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. Drop that 5-star review. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to do a show even tomorrow. See you later.